to the Wise Woman Show. I am your host, Megan Wiseman, or better yet, Wise Woman. Here we empower Christian women entrepreneurs to express their divine wisdom and follow their intuition. This is a space where diverse voices and visions of wise women are showcased to support and celebrate the power of feminine leadership in business. Hello, welcome to the Wise Woman Show. Today we have a special guest, Robin Johnson. She is a beautiful soul and a light to the world. I'm so grateful that she has come onto this platform so we get to learn more about her story and the beautiful messages she has to share with us. Robin is an author, a speaker, and a coach, and I love her title of the Heart Whisperer. She has the most beautiful heart, and she teaches so many beautiful things about the heart. So today we get to hear some of her messages and insights on the deepest things of God and Jesus Christ. So let's get started. So Robin, how did you got all these beautiful things going on in your life right now, but I want a little more about your story and how you got here and how you've developed this deep connection with God.
Well, first of all, thank you so much because I love this podcast and I just love that the wisdom of women is being promoted and shared. So thank you. Thank you for letting me be here. I think my story always goes back kind of to the same place. When I was younger, my parents got divorced when I was about 10 or 12. And shortly after that, I started experiencing depression. And I didn't know what it was. I honestly just thought that I was just less capable as a human being. I didn't have words for it or a diagnosis for it, but I found that I really did struggle emotionally. And that went all the way into the time when I was married and started having children. And I finally started to find my way out. I had really hit rock bottom at one point and just thought, I can't do this anymore. And my sister said, just try one more thing. I've got one more connection for you. And that connection was a man that did counseling and things, but he also did holistic healing. And he started working with me in a way nobody had ever done before. And just bit by bit, I started finding relief for all the heaviness and the darkness that I had felt for so long. And it took me about 10 years to really pull out of that depression. It was not a quick fix, but along the way, I just kept gathering tools. Anything that I found that helped me, I got trained in it so I could help others. And eventually that led me to the place I am today, the work I do today, emotional healing, trauma release, life coaching, all of those things to support and help people. But also during that time, I think it really caused me to search in my spiritual connection with God. I remember one weekend in particular, it was going to be Thanksgiving weekend, and we lived in Arizona. We had no family around. We couldn't afford to go home for the holidays. And so I was already a little bit sad, and thought, I just wish we could go home or have company. And then I started feeling the depression come on, and I thought, oh, no, not this weekend. And I just knew that if I spiraled down, the whole family would spiral down with me, And so I just prayed and prayed and prayed and asked God, please, just this once, will you lift this and not let this depression come on? And it was a miracle. He granted that miracle, and the depression never came. That weekend, we had a great weekend with family. And as I kind of worked through that and we got, a couple weeks after that, I thought, now, wait a minute. if he can take that away, I should have asked that he take it away forever. Like I just asked that he take it away for the weekend, but I haven't felt it again yet. So maybe he took it away forever. And, um, and then a week or two later, the depression came back. And so I was so sad and disheartened in a way, and thought, oh my gosh, my faith isn't enough. This isn't what God is going to do for me. I'm still going to struggle. And the depression did go on for another 5 or 6 years before I started healing. But that taught me a really important lesson at that time, that God isn't always going to take our trials away just because he can. Sometimes there are things we need to learn. There are things we need to find healing for. There are ways we need to grow. And really, because that depression stayed, that is why I had to go through and find all the skills and all the other pieces that I pulled together that really frame up the life work I do now.
I love that. I love hearing your story because it's amazing to see someone and their light and all their goodness and all the things they're bringing to the world. And you've gone through the heavy, the dark, and that's what taught you what you know today and what makes you who you are. So you can't avoid those 20 years of depression because
Yeah.
now you are this pillar of light for people and you have
Mm,
experience to help others.
you're
So I
so
know you
sweet.
have a lot of wisdom to share. And now that you've gone through all of that, what has that taught you about God and how do you use that in your work in your life?
Yeah. Well, I've had a few more experiences along with the healing that really deepened my connection with him. And I think of one day in particular. I think up until that point in my life, I believed in Jesus. I never have doubted. I've been a believer since the minute I understood who Jesus was. I think for some reason I've felt very connected to him. And so always knew of him and believed. But I don't know that I really knew him until one day when I was really in the depth of some emotional pain, and I had gone to a session to get some healing and help, and it really was like the dark night of my soul, probably the darkest of all the days that I struggled. And this beautiful woman that was working on me, at one point everything kind of went silent, and she said, "Can you feel that?" And I said, "Feel what?" And she said, "Can you feel him?" And I said, "Who?" And she's like, "Jesus is here." And it was like the disciples on the road to Emmaus, where they did not know him, they did not feel him, and then all of a sudden they did. And I had that kind of experience where all of a sudden I couldn't see him, but I felt him in the room. And it was the most overwhelming feeling of love and warmth and light. And I just almost couldn't breathe. It was so consuming to feel his magnitude and his power and just his presence. Like I just had never felt his presence before. And that experience was so profound. That feeling lasted for days. Just the change inside of me, and it was almost like I was sitting there on that table in all of that darkness that I was experiencing, and then he came, and just the amount of light that poured from his heart, from his soul, from his being. It just swept away all that darkness. I don't even know where it went. But that was a moment in my life that I could never deny. And just to really sit in his presence and feel his love and power and greatness, that changed me and my feelings about what was possible in a relationship with Jesus and with Heavenly Father.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I really like those intimate moments because I feel like we talk of Christ, we write of Christ, we prophesy of Christ, and we've been learning about him since we were babies. And many of us haven't actually experienced Christ within our being. And so knowing that's possible and is a beautiful testimony of how we can experience him in a real tangible way. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing. And I feel like many people are longing for that. So knowing that it's possible is such a beautiful witness.
Yeah. And I appreciate the woman that told me, you know, if she had not said that, I don't think I would have had that experience. But I was so grateful for her heart that was so tuned in that she would know. And so, yes, I think we need to realize sometimes we put the limits on our relationship with them. It's not the other way around. And to open our heart and mind to what is possible in our relationship with God and with Jesus is so important. It's so important.
That's so beautiful. So how would you suggest people do that? I know you have lots of insights and tools, but there are people
Ah,
out there who are in situations where they would love that, but they have no way of knowing how to create this kind of deeper relationship with God or with Jesus Christ. So,
yeah.
okay.
Well, that's really one of the motivations behind my book, 10 Shortcuts to Jesus. Because I feel like sometimes we waste a lot of time. You know, we take the long route to Jesus. Like, we are not going the direct route to him. And that's really what was in my heart to write this book, just to help people find ways to cut through all the clutter and the noise of this world, to cut through all the culture and the check boxes of religion and just go straight to the source. Like, we have the power to do that. It is our right to have a relationship with Jesus, to have a relationship with God. These things are available to us. And so I think, honestly, one of the most important things is to be open to receive that, to believe that we could receive that, to believe that they want a relationship with us. And even as I had that experience with Christ that day, my earthly father was a good man, but he was very emotionally distant and spiritually distant, physically distant. He was like an amazing creative soul, but he just wasn't comfortable in the intimate, authentic pieces of life. And so I assumed that if that was my relationship with my earthly father, that my heavenly father was probably the same. Like, he was looking out for me. He was going to provide for me, but, you know, I'm kind of busy, so don't get too close. Or, like, even if I started crying, it made my dad really uncomfortable. He didn't like emotion, a lot of emotion or tears. And so I just learned to find other sources, you know. And so that when I started gaining this connection with my heavenly father as well, that was another huge aha to me. Like, wait, what? He's not like my earthly dad? And I think that is a challenge many people have, that we project whatever type of relationships we have here, we project that onto our divine relationships. Because it is hard to think about or conceive of a perfect father or a perfect brother or a perfect sister for that chance. I mean, I'm no saint, so, you know, it's not just men. That's all I'm trying to say. But if we've had hard relationships here, sometimes it can complicate our divine relationship. And that doesn't need to be the case at all.
I love that. So you're saying is some of the work we need to do is working on maybe the damage, I don't know how to say that, the trauma or the hurts and wounds that we've created in our human relationships and rebuild a different version of God than the one that we have perceived from our wounded versions of relationships. So, how do you suggest people do that?
Well, one of my favorite things that I did to start building my relationship with God is to write letters to Him. And I had an amazing business partner that taught me to do this. But I would say in my life, up until that point, when I started writing letters to God, if you said, how many times have you prayed and heard an answer? I think I could have counted that on two hands, like it wasn't a lot. And I was in my 40s when I began this. And so when she told me that I could write a letter to God in my journal and that then He would give me an answer back, I was like, man, my percentages on getting answers is so small. I don't know that this is going to work. Of probably the 60,000 prayers, or I don't know how many prayers I'd said in my life, to have so few answers. And so I was really nervous to try it. I was very cautious to try it. But I did one day go by a journal, and I started and I wrote my first letter to God. And it was amazing when I was done how I got an answer back. And just what I felt, what I heard, what I sensed, I just wrote. And that practice has continued probably for the last 7 or 8 years. And so I have probably 8 journals of letters, and they've really become my personal inspiration, my personal revelation. And I feel like I know my Father's voice. And all of the answers that He's given me have been such a blessing to help me just get by the day to day, because life is challenging. I mean, hour to hour, sometimes I'm not doing so great from one hour to the next. So, I need help. But that, I think my letters to God is really what built my relationship with Him.
I love that because so many times we are just like passing through our prayer, moving quickly, or we don't take the time to like receive the answer or sit and listen. So I love that I'm a writer too. So I love writing and seeing the inspiration. And then sometimes I didn't think it was a big deal. And you come back later and you're like, wow, I I received that. That was amazing. So I think that recording your inspiration and your revelation is so important because
Oh,
you can receive it then, and then it also can be inspiring and helpful later. And the visual of receiving something and actually not getting lost in all the commotion that goes on in our brains is really helpful for me. So I love that suggestion. Someone's trying to
yeah,
connect with God, they can write it out, take a minute and
yeah,
sit. And then it's almost like that practice, it becomes easier and it becomes stronger. And like you said, you can hear and sense the voice and the presence of God easier because you're like making more time and putting more senses into it. So beautiful example.
yes.
Okay.
And I have to tell you one of my funniest letters, because there was one day, I don't even know what question I asked, but like all of a sudden, all this really cool stuff just flowed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. This is so cool. And then I was like, wait. So this is like the PS at the bottom of the letter. Wait, can I write you about anything and you'll answer me about anything? And you can teach me things I don't even know what I'm talking about. And his answer was, yeah, go back and read this letter and you'll know that's true. like, good point. That just happened. You're right. I knew none of that before you told me. Anyway,
I
fun
love
times.
it. I love it. And God does have more of a sense of humor and a lightness about him than we give him credit for, God and Christ.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought
Yes.
that up because I think we all have this painted version of God, like fear God is the God of the universe, but there's like this warmth and this desire to connect and this like relationship that we've always known and had that we've
Yes.
forgotten. So as you get familiar and you start making that connection again, you'll be like, oh, yes, that's what you sound like. Oh, and it becomes so natural and it's almost like you know him or something and he knows you. So
Yeah.
it's strengthening that connection and that remembrance. So I love that example.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you have anything else that you just think that people need to know about you or your story or finding that deeper connection to God?
I think really part of my story is a little bit of religious trauma that happened maybe 7 years ago, something like that. And I had a situation with the people in my congregation that somebody decided my work was not of God, or I don't know. I don't even know what they say, but they kind of turned me into my leaders and they're like, this lady needs to quit what she's doing. And so I had to go talk to my church leader and we talked for an hour and then he was like, you know what, Robin, I can tell you just have a really good heart and you just are trying to help people. Like, thank you. Thank you. At least somebody can see, the heart of my soul. And he was like, don't worry about it. You're fine, But then after that, like I did worry about it, and I let it fester in my soul. And I thought, who turned me in? Like, talk to me. Who are you? I want to know. And I didn't know who it was. I never did find out. And I didn't know if it was one woman. He did say it was women, so I guess more than one woman. But that just created this little problem in what had always been this safe place for me. When my parents got divorced when I was young, the church just became my rock and my anchor. It was the only thing that was not shifting and changing in my life. And so I held on to the church for dear life many times. And now after this, it was like, wow, I don't know if this is a safe place anymore. And I kept going to church, but I just told myself if anything feels scary or if you feel hurt or offended, you can leave. I'm giving you permission to leave. And so I would stay as long as I could, but there were so many weeks that I just got up in the middle of a lesson and walked out and walked home. And during this time, I really struggled because I thought my access to God was through the church. And so if my heart wasn't in it, I didn't know how to get to him. And so I quit praying. I quit reading my scriptures. I mean, some days I could just hold my Bible and sit there and cry. Like I just really, if I couldn't do it from my heart, I couldn't do it. And my heart was so hurt. I couldn't do all the checkboxy things, And then after about 4 months, I just missed him so much. And I just finally knelt down one day and prayed. I'm like, I know I don't deserve to talk to you right now, but I don't know if I can make it without you. And he was like, well, I'm here. What should we talk about? And I'm like, what? You're still here, even though I'm not really doing all the churchy things and I'm not doing all the checkbox. I'm like, wait, how is that possible? And it was like this mind blown kind of thing, and I know it might sound silly now, but honestly, I really was so shocked. And through that experience, I started growing with him and learning with him and realized I could create this connection with him outside of religion. I was his child, he was my father, and we could have a beautiful relationship. That's how it started. And religion doesn't own God, religion doesn't own Christ. And so, as we started building that relationship, at one point I said, so if you and I are good, like, do I need to go back to church? I'm not clear here. Can we just have it this way? And I feel like the answer he gave to me, which I'm not saying is anybody else's answer, but the answer he gave to me was, yes, I need you in that church. And I need you to bring your light. I need you to bring your love. And you can serve me in that, in that place. And so I went back to church, but I was different. I went back out of love for my father, not out of fear that I would not be able to access him if I didn't. you know? And that shift in my spiritual life just made so much difference that I could serve people at church from my heart because I know if I serve them, I'm serving him. And so I could show up with more love. I could be offended less. I could have more genuine compassion. And so that was just really beautiful to shift how I built that relationship with him and then brought the fullness of that relationship back into my church worship and service. And that place that I felt wounded and unwanted before, now I show up connected to him and ready to love. And so I think I would just say if there are any of you out there that are struggling with church trauma or struggling over church policy or, things like that, and you might be in your difficult time right now, Christ talked about that parable with the 99 and the one and how anybody in the flock is his. But he talked about how one day he was saying to the crowd, if you had 100 sheep and one of them strayed, wouldn't you leave the 99 and go find the one? And so they said yes. And he said, not only that, wouldn't you find that one? And then when you found them, bring them home and celebrate and call your neighbors and friends to rejoice with you after this over this one lost sheep that was found. And what touches me the most about that story is I think Christ could have easily just taken that sheep back to the 99, like, oh, let's just get you right back in the fold. Let's just put you right there with everybody else. But the fact that Christ took that one home, he didn't force him to conform or to fit back with the other people. He wanted to give that one space and time to be nurtured, to be reestablished in their relationship with Christ, to take them to a safe place, to heal those wounds, to figure out what, made them go astray in the first place. And that to me is just so touching. And just know that Christ is looking out for you. If you feel lost, if you feel like you don't belong, he'll take you home. That's how much he loves you. You open your heart to him and he'll take you home. He will nurture you. He will heal you. He will bless you. And so, yeah, that's all I want to say.
Well, I've never thought of that parable in that way because you just think he not automatically brings them back to the flock. But it's so important that he just takes that intimate time with the person that is lost or who is struggling and gives them that nurturing and healing that they need before they're just thrown back in the flock. So I think that was a beautiful message. And I think it goes along with the book that you are about to share. By the time this comes out, this will already be there, but we want you to be able to learn more about Robin's connection to Christ and how you can connect to Christ in this book. So, do you want to share a little bit about that and what it's called and where they can find that?
Yeah, so it's called 10 Shortcuts to Jesus. This is still the our author's proof. I don't even have my first real copy yet, but it is coming out in 2 days. So, um, yeah, and I think this book encapsulates a lot of what we've talked about already today, just that sometimes we take that long road to God, to Christ, and our relationships with them, and there are shortcuts. There are faster ways to get there. You don't have to just wander aimlessly in your life or in your relationship with them. And one of the shortcuts is just like prayer. And I shared my example of writing letters to God. I think saying a prayer is something we often do, but thinking of it as a holy conversation, like that is a different level. That is bringing your heart, your authenticity, your sacredness into meeting the divine. And so, whether you're having that holy conversation while you're writing that letter, or whether you're on your knees, or whether you're singing in your car and worshiping God to great Christian worship music, um, having a real and sincere, honest conversation is a shortcut. The long way to Jesus, just keep like saying prayers with trite phrases that you just could repeat with your eyes closed, and you're not thinking about God, you're thinking about your grocery list, but you're still saying the words. That is the long way to build a relationship with Jesus. But you find authentic conversation, you're going to get there a lot faster. So the shortcuts are just about ways in our life and our gospel living and experience that we can really shorten that time it takes to know Him, to know them, to feel seen and heard and loved. And yeah, so there's 9 other shortcuts. Prayer, starting a holy conversation is just one of them that we've talked about today. But as I wrote this, my heart was really reaching out to the one that feels lost, the one that just can't get their footing in religion or in a relationship with God. And this book does not have all the answers, but I feel like it's a stepping stone. It's a place to start. And the things in here are doable. They're real. They're easy. It's not hard. But the funny thing is, even though in my heart I wrote this to the one, what I found is that the 99 love this book because they already love Jesus. And if there's any way to get there closer, faster, they want to read it. And I have a friend that is very close to Jesus, and she read this book, and it was so cute when she called me. She's like, Robin, I had no idea there was more. I thought I was as close to Jesus as I could get, and this took me so much deeper. So I think anybody that wants to belong to the fold of Christ would love the book.
I love that. I love it so much because there's times where I feel like I'm in the 99 and sometimes I'm the one. So I feel like you're right. It could be either you are the one, or maybe you're nurturing and loving somebody who is the one. And I feel like any shortcut we can get to God will help us find the right answers. So thank you for giving us those shortcuts so that we can receive our own revelation and, even more importantly, have our deeper relationship with our Savior Jesus Christ. Well, I could hang out with you all day, but I feel like we've just been nourished and uplifted by your light. You just like glow like an angel. So thanks for being the angel of
Thank
light
you.
and messages today. So if you want to connect with Robin and get in touch with some of her books, her website is robinjohnsonhart.com, and I will include that in the description. She's also found on Instagram and Facebook. So, thank you so much for being here. She will also be a speaker. We're just going to plug one more thing at the Tree of Life this year, and we're so excited because she's going to be talking about the crown and connection to God. So, she'll be teaching us some more good things about that and how to do that for ourselves. All right, Robin, thank you so much for being here. It's been such a
Thank you.
joy.
Thank you, Megan. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining the Wise Woman Show. Remember, divine daughters, keep expressing your faith and femininity as you bring your powerful wisdom to this world. Like, share, comment, or subscribe to the show to stay connected.